previous videos, we talked about the complex engineering problems. We mentioned about a few important points related to the complex engineering problems, especially when you need to incorporate those complex engineering problems in your curriculum and in your courses. First point, you will need to refer to the course outcome on the course that you are teaching. See if there are course outcome attending to the POs, which is in line to WA1 to WA6. WA stands for graduate attributes, where you will need to read through the statements of the graduate attributes. You will find there are complex engineering problems in WA1 to WA6. Whenever you encounter the words complex engineering problem, you will need to make sure later in your teaching and learning activities, as well as in your assessment, there should be complex engineering problems. You can choose to incorporate them in any of those activities and any of those assessments, provided that you will need to properly justify that. The second point here is that for you to define the problem that you incorporated in your course to have sufficient levels of complexity, you will require WP1 plus at least 2 of the following WPs, which are WP2 to WP7. You can have all the following WP, or you can have a minimum of 2. WP1, it will be compulsory. Not being able to fulfill this requirement, the relevant problems are not complex engineering problem. Since it is engineering problem, the WP1 will make sure this has been considered. If you look at WK3, 4, 5, 6, and 8, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8, they are all engineering based. Now we settle the complex part and we settle the engineering problem part. The third point, it will be how do we define the existence of WP1? We will need to read between the lines here. If you analyze the statement, there are at least 3 components. First component cannot be resolved without in-depth engineering knowledge. Second component, it will have more than one of the following WK. And third component, it should involve fundamental base or first principle analytical approach. So when you design your teaching and learning activities as well as the assessment, you will need to justify the existence of the engineering problems to the appropriate levels of complexity. The statement requires 3 components. It is only when you fulfill all 3 components, the relevant WP is fulfilled. Now, in our previous videos, we only go through WP1. In these videos, we're going to look into the following WP. To make it easy to be understood, we shall do this in concurrent with the Excel that I have developed for you to see how the principle works. Now let us look at WP2. This is about range of conflicting requirements. Based on the descriptions, it involves wide-ranging and or conflicting technicals, non-technical issues, and considerations for future requirements. Technical issues is related to the engineering issues, and non-technical issues can involve ethical, sustainability, legal, political, economics, and societal issues. If you look at the statement here, there is no requirement that you will need both technical and non-technical issue. You can have the problem fully technical or fully non-technical, or having combinations of technicals and non-technical issue. This shouldn't be an issue, because at the WP1, which has been made compulsory, has already filtered the relevant issue to be related to engineering. WK3, 4, 5, and 6, as well as WK8 are all engineering related. So in my personal opinion, the emphasis here is not technical and non-technical issue. The focus here, it should be wide-ranging and or conflicting issues, because the attribute is about the range of conflicting requirements. That means it involves considerations of various aspects, and there are issues that cover a wide range, and the relevant issues can be conflicting or non-conflicting. That's why there are and or specifically written in the statement. This constitutes the first component of WP2. When the term here and or, that means you can have either one of these or both of them. Now let us talk about the quantity. Let us settle the easier one. When we are talking about certain issues are conflicting, that means bare minimum there will be 2 issues. If only one issue, there is nothing conflicting. If more than 2 issues, the conflicting requirement will involve more considerations. In this case, we can make it bare minimum 2 issues are conflicting each other. Of course, the more the merrier. The more means that the levels of complexity increases. How about wide-ranging issue? When we talk about wide-ranging issue, based on my personal interpretations, 2 issues is still not considered wide enough. 2 issues means issues in plural. When we talk about wide-ranging issues, I set it bare minimum to be 3. So now for you to have WP2, you can have either of these 2 or both. But if you want to go for wide-ranging issue, make sure you have a minimum of 3 issues. Provide justifications here. It is only when you have 3 issues, this is fulfilled. Or you can go for conflicting issues. In this case, you only require 2. It is only you have 2 issues are conflicting with each other, then the conflicting exists. Now, having this fulfilled is not sufficient, because there are considerations of future requirements. That means you are looking into future. Now your problem will have to look into the needs in the future. Without it, it is not WP2. In this case, you will require the future requirements. Provide justifications for that. At this stage, the WP2 is still not fulfilled. We will require the Sustainable Development Goal. Why is this so? Is this mentioned anywhere within the statement here? The main reason here, it will be sustainability. Normally, when we see the term sustainability, we will automatically consider it to be Sustainable Development Goal to be incorporated. It is only when this fulfilled, now WP2 is there. Missing any of these two items here will not give you WP2. You need these two items to be ready, and you need either of these. Let's say now you only have wide-ranging issue. There is no conflicting. We can still consider it as WP2. But if you do not fulfill the wide-ranging, you only have two issues and they are not conflicting. Now this is not WP2. With that, if you want WP2, you make sure all the necessary components are there. Next, we look at WP3. It is about the depth of analysis required. Have no obvious solutions and require abstract thinking, creativity, and originality in analysis to formulate suitable models. Now you have to look at the structure here. You will see that have no obvious solutions as a part of the requirement. The second requirement, it will be require abstract thinking, creativity, and originality in analysis. That will be the second component. Now the term here is N. Now it comes back to how do you interpret the statement here. My personal interpretations, it will be you need both components to be available. You need no obvious solutions, which is compulsory, and you will need this, require abstract thinking, creativity, and originality in analysis. You can group these three together, or you can separate them. But the bottom line here, it will be this come in one group and this come into the second group. And the term here is N. You need both groups. So you will need no obvious solutions. And the three here. The word here is N here. Some may interpret in the manner that you will need all three to be available. Of course, this is going to be more stringent. That means ultimately you will need all four elements here to exist. Personally, as a start and to build out the culture of having the complex engineering problems incorporated within the program and the course, I will release the requirement a bit so that it is not that stringent. I will look into the second group here. Bare minimum, you will have to have at least one item of the three. You cannot have none of these three. Let's say this. So if the second group you have none, this is not WP3. Now if you have any one of those, I will consider it is under WP3. You can have more. That means when you have more, the problems become more and more complex. This is depending on your preference and how do you interpret the statement. So at this moment, probably I will go for a more less stringent definition. It is so that all the lecturer is familiar with this complex engineering problem solving before we go for higher levels in terms of the complexity. It is okay if you disagree with me on this, because the term here n and n here, that means you can make it in the way that all 4 items here must be available to be considered as WP3. I would say it would be up to the consent and interpretations of the CQI committee. Next, we talk about WP4. This is about the familiarity of issues. Looking at this statement, the problem should involve infrequently encountered issue or novel problems. The term here is or. That means the problem can be either this or this. It can be the issue that rarely encountered, or it is a totally new problem. In order to have WP4, you will need only either one of these two, this or this. If you look at the statement here, it is nearly impossible to have both together. It is either a totally new problem, or the problem can be an existing problem but rarely occurs.